Okay, welcome everybody. Can you hear me okay? We have Ryan Martin, who's a supervisor for pipeline regulatory programs with Phillips 66, and he's representing hazardous liquid pipelines and gas gathering. We have Letty Quesada, who's the Director of Compliance and Pipeline Risk Management at Southern Company Gas, representing distribution. And we have Chris Warner, Senior Director of Gas Transmission Engineering for PG&E. So yeah, before we get started, a little background. We've closed out most of our recent conferences with this panel that we call Ask the Operators. We've had different panelists, but really the same idea. This was an idea from Andy Drake, who a lot of you know in the room. He said, why don't you put up a bunch of operators on the panel and just kind of make them accountable to the public and answer questions, and appreciate you all being willing to do that. The first year we did it, we have kind of different themes each year, and the first year was really focusing on integrity management and if it was working. Another time we looked at data, what's the data telling us about progress on pipeline safety, and we're following the theme of the conference today on deregulation, can we maintain safety? I think Gary laid out a really good framework yesterday on the reason for why this is the theme for the conference and this panel. We've had several executive orders, mandating deregulation. We've had several advanced notice of proposed rulemakings from PHMSA that focused on decreasing regulatory burden without much mention of safety. And I know something that came up in the last panel on deregulation, that I'm not sure got talked about enough, was the overwhelming nature of the number of the regulatory, of those rulemakings on an organization such as ours being so small, and not being able to respond to them all, and having to really pick and choose which ones we're able to respond to. But let's start with some introductions here. If we could maybe just start with Ryan, give a brief introduction, a few minutes about who you are and the operator you're representing. And if you could also give, for the members of the public here, a little description of the types of pipeline systems that your operator represents.
Sure. Hey everyone, thanks. My name is Ryan Martin. I work for Phillips 66. I am a proud dad of two young, energetic boys that love baseball. So we have quite a bit of time that's dedicated there, but I guess I would say hobbies include, golfing and traveling when that's an option, but managing their schedule is pretty heavy. So I've been with Phillips 66 for going on 6 years now. So current role is regulatory pipeline programs, and that includes public awareness, operator qualification. We handle a lot of our permitting that keeps us in compliance and really maintains our license to operate. I would also say that I've been active in the industry, chaired the API Public Engagement and Awareness Group, just recently rolled off of that. Sat on the board for Texas 811, sat on the board for the Pipeline Association for Public Awareness. So I've been around the space for quite some time, going on 24 years now. Phillips, our mission is providing energy, improving lives. So it's something that the entire company is focused on. Safety is, top of mind. And as far as our assets, we operate in roughly, it's 18 states, over 50,000 miles of pipe. There's liquid. We do have gas gathering, some liquid gathering. So it's a pretty diverse mix.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Letty Quesada. I am the Director of Compliance and Pipeline Risk Management for Southern Company Gas. Basically, in my role, I get to oversee the strategy for regulatory compliance for the entire enterprise, which I'll talk about in a little bit, what all that means. Part of my responsibilities include not just the regulatory compliance team, but also the quality assurance team, the public awareness teams, as well as our distribution integrity management teams, but do get involved in pretty much every aspect of the organization. And making sure that we are meeting those regulations, whether they be federal, whether they be state, or whether they be local requirements that we have to follow. Been in the industry for 34 years, and I'm happy to say that all 34 of those have been with one company. So I am a lifer with them. By education, I am a mechanical engineer, and I do serve on various industry committees. One that I am most proud of is the Gas Piping Technology Committee, also known as the GPTC. I have been the chair of that group since 2013, and very much a group that I look forward to working with. We are the group that puts the meat, excuse me, puts the meat to the bones. I should have brought my water. We put the meat to the bones to the PHMSA regulations. They tell us what we need to do, but not how to do it. So we are a group that's made up of industry, the public, regulators, manufacturers of the gas products, and together, collectively, we are a consensus committee that puts that together. So very excited about that. And a little bit about Southern Company Gas. We serve about 4.5, thank you so much. We do serve about 4.5 million customers through 4 utilities, local distribution companies: Nicor Gas in Illinois, Atlanta Gas Light in Georgia, Virginia Natural Gas in Virginia, and Chattanooga Natural Gas in Tennessee. The company does own and operate over 70,000 miles of distribution pipeline, over 2,500 miles of transmission pipeline, which is integrated with our distribution system. We do also operate aquifer storage fields that are also used as part of our distribution system. We also have some LNG peak shaving facilities that we use also, all as part of our distribution system. So thank you for having me here today, and I really look forward to some meaningful discussion and conversation.
Morning, everyone. My name is Chris Horner. I am the Senior Director for Gas Transmission Engineering for Pacific Gas and Electric. And in light of the remembrance that we had this morning about San Bruno, I do want to emphasize that we are one of those companies that has had their incident and has learned from it. And in talking with the gentleman yesterday, is it Gary, about the challenge after an incident like that, the big challenge for us as a company 15 years on is how do we keep people aware and impacted and committed to making sure that never happens again. In the last 15 years, more than half the people that are in my department were not here when that happened, and so it is it is the top priority of our team to make sure that new people that come in and the people who are there never forget what happened in San Bruno and the impact that it had to the lives of the people that were around that pipeline at that time. PG&E serves Northern California all the way down to Bakersfield. There's about 35,000 miles of distribution, if I'm remembering distribution correctly. Transmission side, it's about 5,500 miles of gas transmission. We're unique in that over 20% of our gas transmission assets are in high consequence areas or moderate consequence areas. So we really have to keep that focus, and we have to be rigorous in how we manage our transmission pipelines. So the topic of today is really relevant to us because we do fully agree, as do many of my operator partners, that regulation is critical to ensuring a baseline for everyone to follow, and that good operators go above and beyond that baseline based on what they know about the pipelines and the public around those pipelines.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I think something that's come up, a theme that's come up is, you know, the idea of a periodic regulatory review, and that being best practice. Completely agree. I think Alan called it a spring cleaning. You know, that makes a lot of sense. But, you know, a lot of, as we talked about, the executive orders and the language in the AMPRMs seem to be stronger. So one of the concerns we have is, how do we track the safety impact of these deregulatory efforts? Are we collecting sufficient data now, or will we need to collect more data and construct new metrics to track that? And I'll let you take that in any order you would like.
Yeah, first and foremost, like we all said, we are looking at this more of a spring cleaning, looking at what are some of these older regulations that are out there. Are they still meaningful? Do we have new technologies today that can help us do what we used to do, but do it in a better way? And of course, we talked about without impacting safety, right? Well, I'm going to disagree with that a little bit. I think we have to impact safety, but it needs to be impacted in a positive way, right? So when you look at these, so we do not just advocate for change for the sake of advocating for change, but there has to be a reason behind that change. To give an example, we do leak surveys today. And the leak surveys, the instruments that we use are the same ones probably from when those regulations were first enacted. So there's different things out there in the industry now that can help us be more effective in the way we do those, more effective in the way that we identify and classify those leaks. So to go by an old regulation just does not make sense when there's better ways of doing things. And that's what we're really hoping that that this brings to being. And as far as the metrics go, whenever there is something new that you implement, you always have to have metrics. Without metrics, you don't know if you're effective. The trick, though, becomes in identifying what are those metrics, right? And to that point, utilities capture a lot of metrics, and we report on a lot of metrics. And some of you may have even been to the PHMSA public data meeting that they held back in, I believe it was sometime in September. And the purpose of that meeting was really to bring all the stakeholders together and talk about, let it be a forum to really discuss what are the metrics that PHMSA has today and what are they using them for. And I can tell you that as an operator, I was surprised at how many metrics they actually have, which ones they use, which ones they don't, and might there be an opportunity in the future to change those up. They had a lot of really good breakout sessions, and we all provided our perspectives, and PHMSA went back with the promise that they would be listening to the comments that came back and that feedback, and that they would lead to some potential regulation in the future on what those metrics might look like, even including national metrics for some possible PSMS metrics. But we'll see where they go with that.
Thanks, Letty. I'm going to just real quick, though, you mentioned the PHMSA meeting on data, and you said all stakeholders, and I just want to point out that the public was not invited to provide their perspective on that. But I agree on all agreeing on the metrics that we should be using going forward, and looking forward to that work. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think you know the metrics that we submit to PHMSA has increased substantially over the last few years. And so at least from my perspective, and I haven't heard from the public, that's something I think that would be beneficial to hear. What other kind of metrics would be beneficial? Maybe Pipeline Safety Trust can help us understand that. So I feel that those metrics, which are quite extensive, give the public a good idea of how much are we assessing, what are we finding, what tools are we using, and then also key things like what anomalies are we finding, how many incidents are we having, and how many safety-related conditions are we addressing that haven't actually become something yet. So I think those metrics are there. The challenge for us as operators is that we have to take it beyond that. And the best way that we have found that is to ask ourselves the question, since San Bruno, we've had the mantra that we will be the safest, most reliable operator in the US. That's words up on the wall, but what does that mean? So how do we measure ourselves to make sure that we're the safest, most reliable operator? And so we've worked with other operators in INGA and AGA to understand where our metrics lie relative to them. Metrics like how much of the percent of the system is ILI'd, how many dig-ins are we having per 1,000 miles, how many incidents are we having per 1,000 miles, and then when we see where we lie, that then drives us to go to other operators and say, how are you doing this in ways that we don't know? So you heard the other day that PG&E has one of the best damage prevention records in the US, and California as a whole does. We do, but we don't in terms of agricultural use. We have one of the worst incident rates. And so that is a key priority on my team, to look at technology, talk to other operators, talk to the farmers, and find out where is that disconnect that while we have a great damage prevention overall, we have a weakness in the landowner agricultural side. And so it's metrics like that, as you work with other operators, as you listen to the public, that then begin to inform you on how to improve your system and become better.
Yeah, I'll just add, we're in an industry where, 99% isn't good enough. We're striving for that 100%, right, to get, perfection on safety. So it's always the goal. And as far as like deregulation, I think we've heard it throughout the conference where we're seeing it as a modernization of the rules. If the rules can continue to focus on risk-based priorities. So from that perspective, when you look at the data that's collected, I think you've heard it up here a couple times already, but there's a lot of data the operators are supplying. So annual reports, through all of our inspections, there's quite a bit of data that gets collected and shared back to the inspectors. So it's not always meaningful to look at maybe a total. So I think there's ways where, and opportunities to drill down a layer or two deeper. There's opportunities to consider, incidents. Maybe it's at a facility or public property. The pipelines are out in the public, so those are certainly important metrics. And then I would say, as far as with industry, API has a data mining team, and the goal for that team is to really look at what metrics are there to provide some, some different ways to look at that, to help improve safety performance. So I think there's opportunity to collaborate there as well.
Let me add one more thing. We're talking about deregulation, and I think the assumption is that operators would like deregulation, less control. In talking to my fellow operators at INGA, actually the opposite is true. We don't want to see regulations that cycle up and cycle down. So we'd like to have a solid, clear, and consistent regulatory environment, not one that has swings every 4 years. And so the operators that I've talked to don't want any of the rules changed. They just want clarity. And then where there is new technology that can improve safety or improve the way the regulation has, we'd like to see those changes happen. But we don't want to see things deregulated and rules disappear, because we're set up, we're operating with that, and we've seen the benefit from that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that. We've mentioned a few times over the last couple days about this steep drop of enforcement at PHMSA. So I'm curious from the operator's perspective, what you see, what is the role of enforcement in pipeline safety, and should this drop concern the public?
I can start with that one, if that's all right. I would say that from our perspective, the inspections remain thorough. We are not seeing a drop in any of the volume of our inspections. Just on our liquid side, we're already 60% increase in the time spent with inspectors. So that is not the issue as far as anything around a lack of focus on safety. There could possibly be just a lag in some of the reporting. So there's a new administration in place. It's been less than a year, so I think hopefully as that paperwork and that process gets better and gets submitted and tabulated and calculated, we'll start to see some of those numbers you were talking about, Bill, maybe come up.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. I think that addresses, the answers the question of should this drop concern the public, but what do you see as the role of enforcement in pipeline safety? Sure.
Yeah. So again, it's not that the enforcement is slowing down. It's specific to, I think, as far as the safety goes, that remains the focus, and that's the goal for these inspections, is to ensure that the operations are safe and that we're doing what's required, and in a lot of cases, doing what we can to go above and beyond in some areas.
I think Ryan said it well. I think the importance of enforcement is twofold. One is to ensure that our understanding of the regulations is consistent with the intent of the regulations and how it's being applied. Some of the regulations, you heard about how skilled the writers have to be. Every time I answer a question about the regulations, I seem to have to go back and read it again and make sure I've got all the nuances of the regulation. And so enforcement is really key for us to learn from our regulators and show them what we're doing, and then getting areas of improvement from them if we're misinterpreting or not applying it the way they expect us to do it. It is really important, though, that be consistent. Like we talked about with deregulation, it really needs to be something that there is a consistent understanding so that we can build and continue to improve. And then that enforcement is the ground floor for safety in operating a pipeline, that we need to be doing much more than just that base level. And then the second aspect of enforcement, in my mind, is unfortunately there have been and probably always will be operators that may or may not perform or try to cut corners around regulations. I think as enforcement is important to make sure that those bad actors, if there are any out there, are stopped and addressed and called to account for that. And all of us operators don't want those bad actors out there, because it's their incidents that lead to impacts to the industry and our reputation and the trust of us. And I say that well aware that 15 years ago, we were an operator that had an incident. But I will also say at that time, and this goes back to being able to interact with others, we thought we were one of the best operators in the country. And we were proud of the operations that we had at PG&E. And it was that incident that opened our eyes to how much further we had to grow.
Yeah, from an LDC perspective, and I'm going to talk here specifically for Southern Company Gas, we have not seen a drop in enforcement. As a matter of fact, we have seen an increase of enforcement. One thing that I must say that our state regulators are doing a much better job of getting us the reports on time. And I think it's really important, because if you don't know what you need to fix from their eyes, then you're missing that opportunity. One of the things that we are very proud of is that we actually take findings from our commissions, along with findings from our internal QA/QCs and findings from our learning reviews that we do, and we incorporate that all in to help us identify areas of improvement. So they play a very important role for us specifically. I also want to mention that from industry perspective, yesterday I took notes from Masood's presentation, where he talked about that for local distribution companies, about 80% of those are being inspected by their state partners. So I think that it's definitely very important. However, I think that when it comes to the enforcement, we need to look at the types of issues that that are found. So how you treat, say, if you missed a leak survey by 1 day, should really be treated differently than if you're not doing your leak surveys altogether. So scalable when it comes to enforcement and civil penalties, I think needs to be there as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Letty. And I think that's a great point to bring up, that the enforcement data I've been talking about is the federal enforcement data, and so much of pipelines do fall under that state jurisdiction, and so many of the pipelines that are closest to us as the public are under state enforcement and inspection. So that's a great clarification. What safety issue for each of you keeps you up at night? And what's stopping us from fixing it?
So this, I think, might ring true for my neighbors here as well. But the one thing for us specifically in the LDCs right now is the broadband deployment initiatives, especially when it comes to the fiber builds. So they are definitely driving a lot of excavation all across the U.S. And while these are efforts to narrow the digital divide, they are operating with very aggressive schedules. Often, I don't want to say secretive schedules because there is a lot of competition among them, but what this is doing is this is putting a lot of strain on the operators who have to go out to locate these projects in a very short period of time, and sometimes in an effort to try to get these marked as soon as possible, then we may be making errors in locating, or there may be delays in locating. And so I just want to quote, and I'm going to read off of here because I want to make sure I get this right. So according to the Common Ground Alliance 2024 DIRT report, that indicates that telecom activities, which includes the fiber broadband, are now the second leading cause of excavation damages, accounting for 23% of all damages across the U.S. And so we do know that PHMSA does offer grants to the states and to damage prevention programs, and those grants do require that there is some kind of adherence to the 9 elements for effective damage prevention programs. However, what we're seeing is that the grants that are being issued for the fiber builds, specifically through agencies, like BEAD and things like that, they don't come with that same type of requirement. So I think that we as an industry would be very supportive, and we have been talking to folks about advocating to make sure that when these projects, these grants do get issued for these projects, that there is an allocation for damage prevention programs, whether that be establishing best practices, right? Educating their employees about damage prevention excavations, reporting, and in general, following one-call laws. So also, I think it's no surprise, we talked about this, I heard this in somebody else's presentation as well. Not all the states have robust laws when it comes to damage prevention and excavation damages. So as a whole, that puts us as an industry also at a disadvantage. And we're doing the best that we can to try to minimize that. But I can tell you that we have a model within our company. And we say when it comes to excavation damage, it's a shared responsibility between the operator as well as the excavator, right? And there's problems on both sides that need to be fixed. But we say there's only certain things that we can control. So, and my regulator's here, so he'll appreciate this. We say we live in a glass house, and therefore we can't be throwing stones. When we fix our house, then watch out. We will be throwing stones, but we got to fix our house first.
So yeah, before I came here, I told my youngest son, come in and what the topic would be, as far as, and then the opportunity to get to talk. So I had an idea that this question might come up. So I'd said, what do you think, keeps Dad up? And he said, yeah, folks not calling before they dig. So I said, yeah, that's a good point. So, I would say that, safety is top of mind. Unauthorized excavations, it's a top cause of serious incidents. That's what we're seeing in PHMSA's data, CGA. There's a lot of different sources for tracking that. And so as an operator, we continue proactive programs on our public awareness side, and then even stepping that up into the engagement piece as well. So as far as kind of what's stopping, I think what Letty had said, I would second that. There's challenges with the call before you dig laws, across the various states. So, looking into eliminating some of these exemptions would certainly be a step in the right direction.
So I think I already mentioned ag damage. That's probably the one that keeps me up the most at night. But to play on the third-party damage, it is the leading cause of pipeline damages in the U.S. And enforcement, we're going back to the enforcement word, I would love to see more enforcement on the state level. We do a lot to chase operators that haven't done a one call and then make them pay for the damage and educate operators as to how much it's going to cost if they actually hit us. But if we had a really strong enforcement arm, that would help. We can report them, I think it's to the Better Business Bureau and other bureaus to get some action taken, but it's not very strong. So stronger enforcement. And then the other thing that keeps me up at night is, Eric mentioned also, is cultural. So that we always stay alert to and not complacent with how good we are doing, and we're always looking for that new threat that may surprise us out there so that we can address it before it finds us.
Yeah, Chris, and this is a little bit for everybody, but I think especially for you being at PG&E, I would have imagined that what would keep you up at night is another event like San Bruno, and that possibility of some pipe like that still being in your system. And so I'm surprised to hear that it's ag damage and not something like that.
So I think that goes to the confidence I have in the integrity management that we've done within our HCAs and our populated areas. So we've gone from about 10% piggable up to 58% piggable, and that is a large percentage of the large diameter, higher pressures lines that are going through the system. We do have approximately 40-50 miles that are on the schedule to be made upgradable that have population around them that we want to make sure that we can run a pig through it. So that's how we're addressing that nightmare. And I didn't mention, but I've been in the pipeline industry for almost 40 years now. And so the fact that I've seen the progression of how much we actually know about our pipelines, the fact that I've got an incredible team that's as passionate about keeping the pipeline integrity strong in PG&E system, and executives that actually get it, understand it, fund it, helps me sleep better at night. But I still do worry about the things I can't control, which is that ag damage. How can we control that better? And then the threats and the complacency that could grow over time.
Okay, I think we got time for one more question before we open it up to the audience here. Where do you all see opportunities for more cross-stakeholder engagement? I think events like this are exceedingly rare. I think there's a good effort now with 1185 towards public engagement. How can members of the public get more involved and be heard, and how can we all advocate for our own safety?
I'm happy to take this one. So we're really focusing on our public awareness, emergency preparedness, and with both of those, engagement is key. I would say there's a lot of opportunities out there for engagement. So community advisory panels are certainly a good starting point if anybody is looking to engage with the operator in their area. If you have any questions on how to find those, the operator website's a good place, or if you've got a contact with that company, having some dialogue there around community advisory panels. Local emergency planning committees, LEPCs, are another avenue that would get you in the room to really have a conversation with the operator, the response community, to discuss what some of the plans are should there be an emergency. So those vary across the state, but if you've got questions on that, I think your operator should be able to help. We certainly would be happy to help and get you pointed in the direction of some of those resources. You know, we're continuing to explore, technology around engagement, some components for GIS mapping, AI sentiment tools to kind of help gauge and understand what the temperature is in certain areas. So, and I would say the last thing would help. Who here has heard of Smokey the Bear? Show our hands. Okay. Yeah. So that was a PSA, a campaign. You know, the government got behind after World War II to help with the forest fires and wildfires. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to get the state and the feds, with industry to kind of fund some really massive campaign that would get the call before you dig message out there and just get it really at the forefront of everyone's mind and the public. That campaign's been successful. It's still going. It's got a 95% roughly awareness as far as when they survey people, as far as what they know about that. So, it's resonated.
Thank you. One of the ways I think that the public can get involved, and we are trying to do a better job as an operator, is really putting out their information. So whenever we have a large construction project that's going to be taking place, we will send out written letters to the impacted stakeholders that live there, explaining what we're doing, what the project looks like, and if there's any questions about that project, there's a contact name right on that letter. So that has been very successful for us. The other thing that I want to point out is that we also show up to a lot of the municipal meetings when they have information for their constituents. So we are there with representatives from the company to be able to answer some questions. And the other one that a lot of people don't think about is fire department open houses, right? So October is Fire Prevention Month. And so the gas companies typically will get invited to have a booth and talk about pipeline safety. And we start with the kids. So we have messaging for children, messaging for the adults, messaging for the emergency responders. And we are there, again, to answer those questions. The other thing that we are getting involved in is we are really advocating, I don't know how many of you have heard of this, but PHMSA's Pipeline Emergency Responder Initiative. It's called the PERI. We have, with PHMSA's help and support, along with our state regulators, we have stood up a PERI in Georgia, one in Illinois, and it really aims at how we, the utilities, can work together effectively with the emergency responders in handling emergencies. So I think those are some of the ways. Also, information on the websites. We do have information about the methane detectors on our website. So there's a lot of information on the website for the operators. So take a look at it. You might be surprised what you find there.
That last one I think is really key. I think you might be surprised what you find on the website. So check there. I have to give props to this conference. PG&E's been here for the last 3 years. This is my first time. And I just was really taken by the chance to be able to interact, with a 16-year-old Truth and his father and a friend, and just the seeing each other face to face, having open discussions, respectful discussions with each other, and beginning to build a relationship with each other, I think is so important. And I gave my name and number out to a couple people. I think you should reach out, start to build those relationships, and then we can understand each other better. And if there's technical concerns, maybe a call to a pipeline operator can help you understand whether or not that really is a significant concern or not. And if it is, if it's a bad actor, maybe the pipeline operator will even be able to help you understand, what some of your options are. So I think this is just such a unique and needed forum in our world where we're so divided. And I just love the fact that everybody's coming together.
A couple of you mentioned the websites. Want to give a quick preview. We're doing, in the spirit of the state program website review that we've been doing for a long time, we are currently working on an operator website review, looking at larger operators and how well their websites align with the values of 1185. So stay tuned for that. With that, we'll start taking questions from the public, or from the audience, excuse me. Do we have mics going around? Yep, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Garcia Nelson. I am from Greeley, Colorado. I'm also an impacted person by pipelines going through my community. And so I love what I'm hearing. I love, the forethought, but I feel like one thing that's really missing is language justice. In a lot of places, for example, my community, over 40% of people identify as Hispanic Latino. Over 30% of those only speak Spanish at home. In our school district, we have over 80 languages spoken. And so my question for y'all is, what are y'all doing to connect with those community members who don't speak English or Spanish, and oftentimes are customers as well?
So one of the things that we do is we look at census data to see the demographics for our service territory, and that helps us to determine what other languages we should be communicating to the public on. Further, we also utilize what we call internally our employee resource groups, and if we see that we need some more engagement, say in a Latino community or in an Asian community, then we lean on those ERGs to be volunteers to help us to go out into those communities and talk to those folks. So we try to speak their language, and like I said, that's why we really leverage our ERGs for that, as well as in our call center.
Yeah, I'll echo that. You can imagine California is quite a diverse state. So all our communications come out in multiple languages. It's 8, 10 plus different languages with a number to call that you can actually get a hold of someone who can talk to you in that language and relate to you in that language. So we try to do our best to make sure that someone isn't missing important information because they don't understand the communication.
Yeah, and I would just also say that we're a large company, so we've got diverse culture within our company, so we would certainly rely internally for some support, and then no issue with going for some third-party support, consulting to help us, engage in the public, and a lot of our material goes out bilingual across the country, and then also we've got a lot of pipeline safety information on our website, and depending on what software or web tool you use, right click on that and it would give you the option to translate the website into any language.
Looks like Doug's got the microphone over here.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for the information that you guys have given to us. Took a lot of notes. Sorry, I better stand up. Doug Krogo, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. Couple of questions. How do you self-promote fellow operators that are felons, that are bad actors, that currently and continuously and historically have used deregulations to continue operations in areas that they're continuing to have bad communication with states, where states help them, the deregulations, and they don't promote safety. How do good companies help the bad companies and operators? And do you do that? Is that in your preview? Because it's happening a lot, especially in the rural areas that are virgin to pipelines that are now seeing pipeline activity, i.e. tribal territories in the United States. The closest point from A to B is a straight line. That's through the virgin treaty territories I'm talking about, and communities. A lot of these bad actors use state commissions to promote that the bad actors, to continue their conquest of these lands. So, do good operators help bad operators is my question, and can you help educate them, or are they so big that you just can't? I mean, so I guess that's one question, and the last thing is, thank you, Chris, for acknowledging my son. He's learned a lot, and I know I'm just kind of going off script here, but he remembers you, and he remembers a lot of things that is happening, and I guarantee he will be giving a report next week to his class on this. So the small town of Mobridge, South Dakota, where we'll be affected, that's real close to the Missouri River. They get the Missouri River water, which is about, 60 miles downstream from a pipeline that is damaging. It could damage your water. So he will be talking a little bit about it. So that's my question, is do you guys help and promote each other?
Yeah, Doug, I enjoyed our time yesterday and working with Truth on the siding project. That was, it was fun, and he brought a lot of energy to that group, and he got up and he was the spokesman for our table on his own. He took that on his own. It was pretty impressive. So as far as bad actors or operators that pose challenges, collaboration is a big thing as far as what I'm focused on and what our team is focused on. So we're often hosting calls with other operators to see what new things they're doing, to see how to combine and unite forces and get the 811 message out, or to really just bring that message out. It's a unified message. But I would say PHMSA's got liaison, I forget the name of their title, but they're liaison reps.
Community liaison.
That's it, community liaison. And their primary focus is to get the public in contact with people, with experts. So those should be a good resource to help and navigate through some of that.
Doug, I want to say that, that's a challenge I'll take with me. I will say that as I mentioned earlier, operators get together. I'm on the Pipeline Safety Committee for INGA. And in that environment, we do a lot of peer pressure or discussion around what we think we should be doing to be good operators. And so in that environment, we will be pushing back on operators that we don't think are doing enough or should be doing something different, but we don't have any enforcement or any other levers to pull. But I think the important thing I take as an operator is that I have a responsibility to be a part of us as an industry doing better as a whole, and need to speak up and push back when it's not that way.
And to add to that as well, the American Gas Association has a very similar program called the AGA Peer Review, where we talk about best practices and who's doing what. But I think you can bring it down even more to your state level. We have a group called the Utility Compliance Review Group, which is made up primarily of the regulatory compliance teams we invite all of the operators in the state. Obviously, it's a little bit of a challenge to bring some of the smaller operators in to talk about this, but we talk about, how are we interpreting regulations? What does this mean to you? How are you doing that? We also talk about what some of the violations are that we are seeing from our state regulators, because if we haven't seen it in one area, but somebody else has it, it's an opportunity to learn and, fix things without having to have a violation. The other thing that we do as part of that is we have started bringing together the various teams from the utilities that do show up. So once a year, we bring in all the DIMP teams from the various utilities. Specifically, the top 3 always show up, right? So we have a breakout session for the TIMP group, for the DIMP group, for the public awareness, asset protection, system operations, training, OQ. And really, it's an opportunity for them to all know who at the other utilities is running the programs and learn from each other as well. So I think that's an opportunity where we try to keep each other accountable and share information about what works best for us. And hopefully the small utilities will pick up more. Like I said, our struggle is not the big utilities, it's the small utilities, the municipalities. And so that's a challenge that we still need to work on.
There's a question right here.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, over here.
Hi, Amy Thomas, 350 Deschutes. I'll just ask Chris the question so that more people can ask questions. I don't understand the industry fully, so my question is, what is the regulator relationship like? Is it you guys just sending reports? Do they do site visits? Like maybe you could take me through like a snapshot of a year of like how those regulations, carry out, so I could understand that better.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Actually have a senior director responsible for all those relationships, but just a quick overview, they will come in and actually audit our different programs. This last year, I think it was a 2-week audit of our transmission integrity program. So they brought in 4 different inspectors, I believe, and then we brought our team in and went through all the protocols for auditing TIMP. And they do that, and then they'll go to individual divisions and make sure that the people operating those local areas are operating code appropriately. They also recently have now a requirement to actually go on site when we're doing construction and excavation work and make sure that we're following our procedures in how we do it. So, and that is a unannounced audit. So we have a website with them where we put up all of our projects that are ongoing, and then they pick and randomly go out and talk to our crews, make sure they're operator qualified, make sure they know the standards, they're executing the standards per code. And so that's I don't know if that's a California thing or not, but it may have been since San Bruno that was implemented. So they do in-office audits of the record keeping and the processes. They do in-the-field audits as well. And then we really, after San Bruno, really believe strongly in transparency. And so rather than have them tell us what we did wrong and give us findings, whenever we find something we did wrong, we send it into the state. And so it could be, a day late, operating a valve or maintaining a valve or doing a leak survey. That goes into the state. And so we have a large number of those that are often, little minute things, but we want to keep that transparency there with the regulator.
Hi, over here. First of all, thanks you guys for being up there. As an operator, I wouldn't want to be in the hot seat, but I respect you guys for being up there and taking these questions. I do have a question, but first, actually, I just want to talk to Doug and for everyone else who's in his position. A lot of pipeline operators, when they're doing projects, will use a prime contractor to do a lot of the work for them and manage their contractors. So if you're having issues, sometimes those actions and tactics aren't supported by the person sponsoring or proposing the project. I encourage you to go directly to the pipeline company to make them aware of it, because in some cases, not all cases, if there's not a proper safety management system in place, some of those, I guess, values of the company don't always make it down 1 or 2 levels to the contractor. So it's important to make them aware that those things are going on. I'm sure you probably have, but just advice for everyone. Anyways, sorry. We saw in Dr. Jalbert's report that people often don't even know if there's a new project in place or who the operators are, despite, I know a lot of us it's mandated to send out mailings, to send out brochures. We see that some of these regulations are actually a little bit outdated in how they're written. They reference terms like Rolodex and mailings and phone calls, which we saw aren't really that successful. So since where people are getting their information from is changing, and how they're accessing information, in your interactions with regulators and your inspections, are they more open to more modern interpretations, innovations when it comes to implementation of the regulations, or are they sort of enforcing outdated models and inefficient models in the name of compliance?
Yeah, I would say on our inspections, we typically have a pretty heavy focus on what those minimum requirements are. So if you're talking about on the public awareness side, it's trying to identify what the the potential area for that you would need to target. So they would want to see that those records. But we're doing a lot more than just that. We go, we try to go above and beyond in many areas. So we're trying new technologies. There are some operators that, or some inspectors that will want to take the time and see some of what that looks like. But there are other cases where it's not asked. They're satisfied with some of the records that we're providing from the kind of the minimum baseline requirement.
So from our perspective, the inspections happen in two ways, right? The first one is the actual field, where the inspectors show up with their PHMSA AI checklist. So there's a list of questions that they are prompted to ask, to look for, depending on what they're auditing, if it's construction, if it's regulation, whatever it may be. The second component is the records part of it. Not just did you do it, but show me that you did it. And when it comes to new technologies, our company is of the belief that our regulators need to be our partners in evaluating some of these technologies, get their buy-in. So we are of the opinion that as we are thinking of things that we want to do, we reach out to them, let them know what our plans are, let them sit in our meetings if they want to, let them do ride-alongs, meet with the vendors that we are working on with those technologies, and oftentimes it has led to not only them being more educated about these technologies, but then them taking that back to like NAPSR and educating the other state program managers about these technologies that are out there and kind of keep more of an open mind about those.
Okay, I know we're running a little over. I think we'll, I think we need to call it, unfortunately. So thank you so much to the three panelists here. Your willingness to answer questions directly from the public, unfiltered, I think goes a long way to building trust, and we really appreciate it. It's been a really great 2 days for me. I hope you all got a lot out of this. I've made such great connections, some UA folks, the United Steelworkers, the Standing Rock crew over here, and the whole South Dakota contingency, all of you that are here fighting for your communities and your own safety and learning more and how to do that effectively, inspiring all of the operators that are here, committing to be here, to engage directly with the public, and showing your commitment to safety at your company. All of you are inspiring. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next year.